Welcome back to The Energy Fix, a podcast dedicated to help you balance your energetic body by diving deep into the sweet world of all things health and spirituality. My name's Tansy, and I'm an intuitive crystal Reiki energy healer, energetic nutrition and holistic health practitioner, and a crystal jewelry designer. It's time to talk all things energy. Let's dive in. What if 60 wasn't a finish line, but actually an ignition switch? An ignition switch to catapult you into this next beautiful phase of your evolution. Today, we're reimagining life after 60 as a season of opportunity, vitality, and purpose. And we've got a guide who is going to walk us through it. She walks it through every single day. My guest is Allison McCune Davis, author, traditional naturopath, mama 5, and a longtime natural health entrepreneur. Her new book, 60 is a Good Start, a Powerful Body, a Purposeful Life, and a Plan to Make It Happen, invites women to treat this chapter as fertile ground for strength and meaning. In this episode, we're talking all about the myths of aging and Allison's self-perpetuating circle of purpose, where she's talking body work, brain work, world work. And we're going to be talking all about some simple practices that help you feel younger by design. This is a conversation that is incredibly empowering at any age, because we know that at some point, we're going to be moving through these phases of our life, and to be prepared with tools to help us expand in our mindset, in our body, in our soul. Well, we could all use a little bit of that. Here's Allison McCune Davis. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Energy Fix podcast, Allison. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
You know, in the grand theme of the Energy Fix podcast, we love to get to know our guests. The listeners love to get to know you as a real human being. So let's just dive into that first. Is there a word or a phrase that you're really embodying right now in this season of your life?
Well, I think the phrase I would throw out there, because all my friends would tell you I say it all the time, and I don't know if they start rolling their eyes or what, but is environment triggers behavior. It has become just such a big deal for me. I'm going to say, well, it's been the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, but it continues to be a big deal because the more I think about it, the more I try to, like in my home, well, like that cushion right there is on that floor to trigger me to sit on the floor. And, I sit in the chair too, but to sit on the floor, to have more movement, just to be up and down for mobility. I mean, that's why the Japanese sit on the floor. It's, they're one of the blue zones groups. But, that's just one little example of lots of things that I try to create my environment to trigger the behavior that I want out of myself.
I love
So,
that. And so tell me then, does it work in the opposite direction that if your environment is maybe chaotic or
mhm,
it doesn't have
for
the
sure.
the setup, right? Like, can you talk about how that can trigger maybe the opposite behaviors that you want to have happen?
I mean, let's just take the concept of clutter. Along this wall over here, I have it's a full floor to ceiling, wall to wall bookcase. And it's right by the door where you walk in. And it used to be, just like a regular bookcase full of books. But, and I was thinking, I think I need to like start a meditation practice or something. And then I looked at that bookcase and I realized that every time I walked into this room, that bookcase stressed me out. So finally, one day I thought, no, I don't need to do that. What I need to do is reorder this bookcase according to color. So now, this has been about 3 years ago. It's all the red books, all the blue books, all the yellow books, and I love it. And people love it when they walk in here, and it just has a sense of order. So yeah, the opposite is absolutely true. Just
Mm.
no doubt.
I have to say, I started doing that with my closet and my clothing, and I
Ah,
organize all of my clothing by color.
really?
And
Okay.
I will tell you, it has made
Hmm.
such a difference in just being able to bring in more ease to picking what I want,
Yeah.
what's going to go with something else, taking
Love it.
less thought out of it. I'm always trying to
Yes.
figure out, like, how can I not have to bring too much extra thought
Right,
into
right.
something, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
love this. Environment triggers behavior because
Yes.
really it's taking that extra energy that it takes through thought out of
Yes.
the equation.
I mean, in every part of your life, like I have a little, well, finally, I decided to put my supplements in these little baggies, and these little baggies sit in a beautiful crystal bowl on the bookcase. Right when I walk in, I see it. Well, it took me a long time to figure that one out, but now I see it. I don't forget to take them. It's environments triggering behavior there. Just,
Yeah.
all the little things.
Well, I feel like this, your phrase of your season of life, is such a beautiful lead in to this whole conversation, in all honesty. I mean, Allison, let's really just start right there at the heartbeat of your work. 60 is a good start. It is such a vibe. It is such a feeling. And I'm really curious because I mean you wrote a whole book around that.
Mhm.
What moment made you really realize 60 isn't an ending, but an ignition point?
Well, I turned 60 and kind of freaked out. And th I'm 64 now. So it took 3 years to write the book. It just came out this year. But I was restless. I was restless. I'd been teaching women natural health for the prior 10 years locally and online. And I still loved doing that, but I needed something else. My kids were growing up, most were out of the house. Like life was changing for me. What I was doing for the past 20 to 30 years was now becoming different. And that was part of that restlessness, I think. And I was looking for that thing that was going to be something I could sink my teeth into for the next 5 or 10 years, not just that year or that month, but something bigger that was more long lasting. Didn't know what it was. And so I went on this little 7 month odyssey, which I can give you more detail about if you'd like. But at about the end of that 7 months, I was visiting my girlfriend from age 6 down in Dallas, and she had just turned 60, and we were with like 3 or 4 of her friends who were about 60. We're all at a bar having a drink. I didn't know her friends, so it was just this group of women, and we of course get into this conversation about age and turning 60, and she said, well, I hear 60 is the gateway to old age. And I just had this vehement response. I was just like, no, I do not accept that. And I was telling my husband about it the next day. He was down there with me for a work thing. And so we were on a walk. And I just was passionate about it. And it was about 2 weeks later, after my little journey of figuring out what I was going to do, that I just was actually doing a little breathing meditation and just thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to write a book. Of course, my brain, there's always that battle with the brain. It's like, what? No, you can't write a book. It's all been said before. You're not that great a writer anyway. What are you thinking? And so we all have that. Here's a tangent real quick because I want people to understand we all have that. So once I did decide to write the book, those next few months, I went to this writers conference. It was online. It was like a Zoom call with probably about 200 people over the course of a few days. It's a pretty big deal. And the keynote speaker was Anna Quinlan. And she's like 70-ish probably. She's written tons of books. She's been, I think, I forget if it's the New York Times, but it's a New York magazine or newspaper columnist for like 30 years. She's huge. She's gotten a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, she's a big deal. And she's the keynote speaker. So she's on there talking to all these writer types. And she says, Every day I sit down to write, and every day I have to fight off that voice that tells me, you're not a good writer. Nobody wants to hear it. You might as well just go do something else today. And then she actually named him Nigel. So she says, so I have to say, oh, it's you, Nigel, get lost. And then I start to write. And so everybody in the chat was just like, oh my gosh, if that's the only thing we heard today, it was worth the price of admission. I love that story because, no matter who you are or what you've done or not done in the world, we still all have that. I like to call it the battle with our brain, that other little voice in there that's trying to take us off what our mission is.
Yeah. Oh. Well, and I like that you noted all of that because I definitely want to dive into your 7 month odyssey
Hmm.
here in a moment. But I
Yeah.
love that you talked about that because you when you talked about natural health, you are a traditional naturopath,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Yes. So
Hmm.
you're trained as a traditional naturopath, and I love this whole journey because you've worked in this field. You've worked with
Hmm.
aging, you've worked with health, you've worked
Hmm.
with men and women that are trying to beat the quote
Right.
unquote old age battle, right?
Right. Yeah.
And now here you are saying, I'm seeing something different. I need something different. It's time for me to shift. And so I think that you and your journey would be such a beautiful, valuable story to tell so that we can emphasize we're all going through this,
Yeah.
every single one of us. So please
Hmm.
share your story.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I think I'm gonna write a book. And well, no, sorry, that was the end of the 7 months. The beginning of the 7 months was I turned 60 and I thought, I'm restless. And I thought, I think I'm going to have to say yes to some things that may not be the thing, but they're going to lead me to the thing. That just happens a lot. Like this step led us to that thing, led us to that thing. And oh my gosh, here's like a big thing. So maybe that's just a lifetime of experience knowing that's kind of how it goes. So you really have to be, I think, open to all the signs out there. Well, so the first thing that I came across was this a guy named Jesse Itzler. He is the husband of Sarah Blakely, right? Inventor of
Yep.
Spanx, and he's an entrepreneur. And he created this big calendar. It was like for a whole year. And I found him on Facebook somehow. I don't even know how. And the calendar was cool. I liked it. So I got it and it came with the Facebook group. So his big deal was he wanted you to create a misogi, which is a Japanese word for a life-changing event. He wants you to have a misogi every year. So you're really making significant memories each year. Oh, in 2021, I did this. In 2022, I did that. Right. So you remember these significant memories because, life tends to go really fast the older we get because we're doing the same things all the time. It was so seemed so long when we were kids because everything was new. Well, if we just keep adding new things in now, life seems longer than if we are doing just the same thing over and over and over, which I mean, we all do, but if we can interject those things. So anyway, I want you to create a misogi. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's my misogi going to be? So I'm thinking about this for a good 3 or 4 months, lurking in the group. I really wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't know anybody. They were male, female, all ages, just, but the thing about that group was they were all talking about really living life and they were going to do this and oh, this is going to be my misogi and just different things like that. And he's that way too. So this girl pops up uh, one day and says, I'm going to do the 75 hard challenge starting tomorrow. Does anyone want to join me? And I'd heard about it 4 months prior, and I'd listened to a podcast about it. Do you know what 75 Hard is?
I don't. No.
It's this challenge. It's and I listened to this podcast. This guy that started it is huge, muscular, tattoos everywhere. I mean, like I thought I'm not his target market. There's no way I can do that. It's very physical. You have to work out twice a day, 45 minutes each time. One has to be outside in the elements. You drink a gallon of water. You have to have a super clean diet. And you read nonprofit or non fiction books like 10 pages a day. You can't mess up anything or you start over. It's very, very intense. So I thought, I wonder if I could do that. And I went back and re-listened to that podcast again. And I thought, I think I can arrange my life to do this. And I just turned 60. I'm motivated to do something, and it could be my Masogi. And so I did it. And I love this story because the only thing that changed in those 3 to 4 months that made me think I could do it were reading what these people were saying. It was a mindset shift. That was just what it was. And it goes to that concept that we are the five people we hang around. Now, whether that's actual people or what are we listening to? What are we, what are we putting into our eyes and ears, our senses? Is it good? Is it uplifting? Is it positive? Or is it not? Is it the opposite of that? And, we don't want that. I mean, life's hard enough without, putting bad stuff into those senses. And uh, so I did the 75 hard, and I also did a little mastermind online again with women, all ages. We were just sort of, it was like I can't, 6 weeks, I think it was. We were just sort of talking about, our lives. Were we doing what we should be doing? Just sort of a general mastermind. And then it was after that that I went down, saw my friend in Dallas. A couple weeks later, decided to write the book. But so it was just, those things led, I had to be intentional about that searching out of what is going to be, what am I going to focus on? What's going to be my next thing?
Mm.
So,
I love that. I love that. You're right. It's so much about mindset shift.
yeah.
Even when you're hitting that milestone year, birthday, 50, 60,
Mhm,
70,
mhm, mhm.
100, right? It's really about how you are perceiving and looking at it.
Yes. Yes. And
Now,
so many think it is the gateway to old age. And I think it's the opposite. I think it's the time where maybe our kids have grown and left the nest, or maybe or, ending a 30-year career, or both, or it's just a transformative time. And so we have more white space in our brain because of those things, because, we're at this point in life to think, to consider, what might we do different? And we have all this decades of wisdom to go along with that, which is pretty great.
yeah.
So
And
lots of people have done their big thing in the last third of their life. I list a lot of them in the book.
you're right. And
Yeah.
those stories are always so inspiring.
Hmm.
Now, you've said multiple times here that people have said to you that 60, we'll say 60, is the gateway to old age.
Yeah.
But you say that you can reimagine life at 60. It can become an
Yes.
opportunity, it can become full
Yes.
of purpose and vitality. I'm really curious, thinking about this gateway to old age. I'm curious and thinking that maybe the people that we're hanging out with, the culture, the conditioning,
Mhm.
the mindset that we are allowing ourselves to be in really is going to rewire or create these stories to allow us to either, number one, look at it as a gateway to old age, or number two, look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
How do we start rewriting the script to this?
Well, I mean, I think it takes some real intention, and I'll go back to what are you putting in your ears and in your eyes? What or who are you listening to? In all aspects, who you live with, who you interact with, what you're listening to or watching. And I'm not saying I love a good Netflix, binge watch, but I'm also I've been working on this for a long time. I mean, decades. And so, you know, if I like there was a time when I was in my 40s. Okay, so when I hit about 40, well, let's say 43. I just had my first three kids. So at 37, 40, and 42, a little older than most. And my body just kind of went, down. And my immune system was really low. And I found my first naturopath, and got, I really spent probably that decade getting my body back in good shape. My gut health, I had too much bad bacteria, not enough good. My adrenals were shot, pretty typical after having three kids. My thyroid was off, so I was really having to fix these things naturally, I chose to do. And, and during that time, I remember in my bedroom, so here's where I would sleep, and right over here to my wall, right, was this big wall, and there are these 40 verses from the Bible that have to do with healing. And so this woman wrote a book about it. This woman that had had cancer and had a remarkable healing situation. And so this is where I got this. So she had these 40 verses that she put and I put into first person. I am blah, 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 blah. I am blah, blah, blah. So putting it into first person, although it's not written that way, I printed them out on big cardstock. So I had 40 and I taped them to my wall, that whole wall. So every morning when I got up and every night when I went to bed, I saw them and I read them and I saw them. I mean, so, and spoke them. And so that was, sometimes you have to go to an extreme like that to just have it become part of you. You're speaking the right words. You are, again, putting the right things in your mind through your senses. Go to the point of speaking the right words. There's such a great book called, I think it's called Messages in the Water by this Japanese scientist. Have you heard, that book?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that just is such great evidence as to what our words that we speak can do to us or to other people. He put those words on water, different words, love, war, hate, peace. He even did classical music and heavy metal music. And so, all those horrible words created when he froze the water, awful looking, nothing symmetrical. The beautiful words created symmetrical, like snowflake type designs. And it was, we're 70% water. So, I mean, that's just an example of how important it is.
Yeah.
So, it's just, again, read good things, uplifting things, learn to know who you are. I love all the personality tests. I've done so many over the years, and just that self-knowledge about who am I, do a little counseling if you never have, just understanding why your childhood made you who you are and overcoming anything that, may have been in there that wasn't so great.
Allison, maybe this was from the postcards that you put onto the wall, or maybe it was a different affirmation altogether. But was there one in particular that you remember being just life-changing for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is not to do with health, but and I can't remember how it goes exactly, but to do with purpose. There is, and again, it's from the Bible. It's Ephesians 1:17 to 19. And it talks about God giving us our purpose, enlighten my eyes so I know what you've called me here to do. And so there was this guy, this preacher that I came across, I guess it was also in my 40s, and he's dead now, but this was like in the 1920s. And when he was in his 20s, he didn't know what he was going to do with his life. And somehow, I don't know if someone told him about that verse or what, but he spoke that verse again in first person for 6 months. Each day he spoke that. And at the end of 6 months, he knew exactly what he was going to do with his life. And I was hearing him talk like when he was probably 80 or something. And so I thought, well, if it worked for him, it'll work for me. And that's what I did that. And what the first time I remember that sort of coming to fruition was like at age 50 when I decided to start teaching women about natural health. And then the second time, I mean, I also did that before I decided to write the book. So we all have our areas of spirituality that are really important. And, whatever that is for you, that area is what it is for me. And that really wasn't until I got into my 40s. But yeah,
Mm,
that was a big one.
mm. And I think that you're spot on there. I mean, I've seen it over and over and over again, Allison, and I can even testify in my own life. You can eat all the right foods, you can move your body the right way, you can do all of these holistic health practices, and all of them, many of them,
Yeah.
are important and valid and true for whatever point you're at and what you might be trying to work through. But that connection
Yeah.
to spirit, whatever your spirit is,
Hmm.
whatever you call God, that connection to purpose, that connection to something outside of you that is higher, can really heal on a level that I have seen
Yeah.
food, body movement, that it doesn't even touch.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's just like, I mean, there's just so much we don't know, So, and we have to acknowledge that fact.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems like just exactly what you said. If we didn't have that spiritual part, I don't know if all the other stuff would work.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Well, let's talk about this even maybe a little bit deeper because I'm sure some of this really relates into your book.
Hmm. Yeah.
Is there a persistent lie? We'll just call it straight as it is, a persistent lie about aging and longevity that you really wanted to dismantle in your book. And what truth were you bringing forward to replace it with?
Well, the lie is that it's too late. And it's just not. It's not. I remember at age 55, I guess I had a little mini freak out before 60, and I had not been exercising. And I mean, off and on, like I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go exercise, and I'd do something for a week or two, and then I'd just be back to not, it was not consistent. That was just sort of my typical prior 20 years.
You're
And
being
so
consistent, being non-consistent.
yes, exactly, I was. And so I came across a book. It was called Younger Next Year, and it's pretty old, but it was written by a doctor and a lawyer. And the lawyer was 70 when he wrote it. Doctor, I think, was in his 50s. They kind of alternated chapters, and the lawyer was sort of the guy that was older. And it really inspired me because I thought at 55, I thought, oh my gosh, it's too late. I have waited way too long to get into some kind of consistent exercise. Well, I hadn't, but what I did at that point was and I had to take it to the extreme in my mind. So I got 5 kids at home still at that point. I think they were all at home. And yeah, they were. And I thought, and I was homeschooling for 20 years. So I thought, I don't care if these kids eat cereal for dinner or if they have old clothes or if they don't get educated. I have to go to my workout appointment, and it was an appointment. And I just started with twice a week. Um, and that's number one. And nothing is going to come in front of it because something can always take us off course. There's always something else. There's a party, there's an invitation, there's a somebody wants you to do something. There's always something. And we have to get to that point where we commit to ourselves because that's what we do. We're real good at committing to other people and following through with promises to other people, but not to ourselves. And I just was like, if I'm not here, if I don't take care of this body, there's not going to be a mom for these kids, So I just had to take it to that extreme. Of course, I didn't want them, not taken care of, but you know what I mean? I had to. So that was number one. Everything else had to work around that workout schedule. And then little by little, I increased and increased and I've kept with it. So that's good. I'm not even sure what you started asking me on that question, but that's where we ended.
Oh, yeah, you answered it. I asked if there was a persistent lie, and you said that
Oh
that
yeah, well,
persistent
there's
lie.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Well, and then the opposite, I think you also asked, and so what's the truth?
oh,
And this is
yes.
this is another of my favorite lines is your future is hidden in your daily routine. I love that because I was always so inconsistent. I feel like now what I'm trying to do with this book and program is solve the problem of inconsistency because it is a problem. So that's the goal.
Mm. And so that was going to be my next question of what do you do with that inconsistency? Because let's be honest, Allison, I feel like, I mean, you are a trained or a traditional naturopath,
Mhm.
right? You've seen it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
part of why the health industry is a multi-billion dollar industry
Yeah.
because because human beings can really struggle, and
Yes.
this is outside of the toxins and the things that do come
Uh-huh.
into our field each and
For
every day,
sure.
but
Hmm.
even the struggle of being consistent and
Yeah.
staying on track
Hmm.
is very present. And
Yeah.
so I was going to ask about that, but I'm betting that that is probably, from what you just said, worked into the framework of what
Yes.
you bring into the book itself.
Totally.
Okay. And so in your framework, you talk about this self-perpetuating circle of purpose, yeah?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that consists of three things: body work, brain work, and world work.
Yes.
Yes. Let's talk about that. Can you
Okay.
give us a quick map of
Yes.
what belongs in each circle and how they feed each other so that
Yes.
we can
Yes.
get past this perpetual cycle of on off yo-yo
Yeah.
dieting
Yeah.
and everything
Yes,
that goes with it?
and it's not difficult. So let me say that first. The picture of the framework is a circle, the self-perpetuating circle of purpose, with the three pillars that you just mentioned: body work, brain work, world work, and all of those are coming from studies in longevity. So I did natural health, but I'm always fascinated with longevity. And so you've got the blue zones, of course. If someone doesn't know what that is, those are the areas in the world where the large conglomerations of centenarians are located. And they've studied those and what did they have in common. But there's also big Harvard studies on women, like 226,000 women in these studies, multiple studies. Then there's also cancer studies that are for longevity using lifestyle changes where they didn't think there it was going to be a good outcome. So multiple studies kind of brought all those what they all had in common together and put them in, and they all fall in these three categories. So the body work is the physical. What are we eating, drinking? How are we moving our body? The brain work is the mental, emotional, spiritual, and the world work is purpose and relationships. So the body work, and under each of these, I have the big five. And the idea is that you're going to pick something from each category to do for 60 days. So the book, 60 is a good start. Yes, the name means, well, I was 60. We're talking midlife. But also, it's 60 days is a good start because Dr. Caroline Leaf, the neuroscientist who you may have heard of, she's pretty popular, again, written 20 books. She's in her late 60s, I think now. I love her. But she looks through the microscope and can see the nerve cells in the brain and the formation of habits. And it's at least 60 days. It could be up to 8 months, depends on the person, the habit. But it's at least 60 days. So that's why 60 is a good start. Name of the book has that double meaning. And so the book leads to the 60-day dare. And there's a planner, there's a separate book, a planner for your 60 days that you can also get. Um, and we also have an online group. But the idea is that I think most people need accountability. There's the rare person that can do these things on their own, but it's hard. But if you could get a group of friends together to do it that aren't going to flake out on you, or you can get in our group and do it. It's not expensive. Um, anyway, you pick something from each of the categories and you do that for 60 days. And this is the start of creating these new habits. And they're not, it's not hard. I mean, for instance, we just finished a 60-day dare and we're about to start another one. And so what I did this last time around in under body work was I said, I have to eat 30 grams of protein before I eat anything else in the day. And that has been so fantastic. I cannot tell you. Um, I'm also doing, 3 days of strength training. Well, I'd say probably about day 45. And I've been doing strength training for quite a while. I mean, well, almost 10 years. And so about day 45, I really started to notice that my quad muscles, like my thighs, the muscles were bigger. They were more there than they had ever been. And just that focus on protein. So that was a big deal. we're on a break right now, and that's a really interesting time to see, am I still doing my habits? Am I not? And maybe I need a little longer, maybe it's more than 60 days, but I'm still doing that 30 grams because I like it so much. I just feel like it's better. It's so sustaining. But in that body work, there's eat. So anything to do with what you're eating. You could eliminate some things for the 60 days that you think are not good for you. You could add some things. You could just change some things. You could go on a specific, healthy diet if you wanted to do that. Or the second one is drink. Are you drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day? Over 50% of the ER visits are solved by hydration. So people just don't drink enough water. I like to imagine my veins and arteries and organs. They need to be supple and, pliable and movable instead of hard and rigid, so we got to have the water. We're 70% water. Our body just needs it. It's so easy to go through the day without drinking any water in some cases. Move the body would be the next thing. So some kind of exercise that you're going to do every day. You don't have to you could just say, I'm going to do 45 minutes of exercise. Or if you haven't exercised in a long time, maybe you're just going to walk to the stop sign and back every day. You start where you are, you take baby steps, you're setting yourself up for success for these 60 days. You know what and even after a week, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much, I can't do this, back it off a little bit. So if you said, let's say 45 minutes of exercise a day, well, it doesn't have to be the same thing every day. Maybe you're going to go work out and strength train. Maybe you're going to do some yoga. Maybe you're going to go walk, but something every day. And then sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. That's the number one thing for healing anything. We've just got to have that. It gets the toxins out of our brain, all that. And there's lots of ways to help that sleeping situation, your environment, just the things that you do, your bedtime routine. I know that's a struggle for a lot of people, especially as they get older. And then deep breathing sessions. We just don't breathe right in America or the West. I used to teach yoga. I guess I may go back to that at some point, but I love yoga, and that's where I really learned about breathing. And then, gosh, some of these books written by Wim Hof or James Nestor. Oh my gosh, have you seen that book, James Nestor? It's called Breath. It's one of the best books I've read lately.
I haven't read that one yet. No.
Yeah, it's a great one. Just everything you want, everything on the breath. And he's a good writer. But so yeah, those are the big five in body work.
Well, before we move on to brain work, I'm curious. I guess actually two things. Number one, because I thought this was interesting, you said that the study was done and found that 60 days is the length of time that it takes for this habit formation.
Yeah.
Do you think that that has lengthened because of the decreased attention span and need for quick fixes that maybe modern living, modern society technology has trained our brains to respond to? Or do you
Well,
think that that always was?
I don't know the answer to that because lots of people, forever, they're like, oh, it's 21 days to build a habit. It's 30 days to build a habit. But even people say that now, and it's just not true. It's at least 60 days. I don't know if that's changed, but it would not surprise me if it had, just because it's crazy how everything's changed with social media and the internet and flipping through things, and the attention span's like 1.3 seconds or something crazy like that. Yeah, I mean, I just am convinced that has rewired brains,
Oh,
minds.
for
I
sure.
mean, there's just no doubt. I mean, to me, it's harder to sit and read a book. I mean, I have to make myself sit and read a book, because we just live in this world that's tough. And I'm glad I lived in a world before they had that. I think about my kids that grew up in this world, and it's interesting though to see some of the younger generation, like even I'm seeing kids in their 20s and 30s. They're not kids, they're adults, but choosing not to do that. They're trying to like live a life before that existed. So pretty interesting. So I
Yeah.
don't know the answer to that, but it's 60.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just curious. I was
No,
curious.
it's a good
And
question.
and I agree with you. I am so grateful. I'm in the Generation X, and I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that I grew up in that time that I can appreciate both sides of the
Yes.
spectrum.
Yes.
You know, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, all my kids were just, couldn't wait till they got their first phone. And man, I put it off as long as I could. They were the last of their friends to get one.
Well, now before we move into brain work, let's stick with body work for a second.
Sure.
For the listener, is there maybe two low friction, high return practices that a person can do that can start today to start to feel stronger, more resilient, more at home in their body that you
I
would
mean,
recommend?
well, I think it depends on where you are and who you are. And I give a lot of different examples in the book, like if this is you or if this is you. But I do think, I mean, water is huge, and that's pretty darn easy. You just have to keep it with you. You really do. If you don't keep it with you, and so I have two different water bottles that are, stainless steel that I fill up, and I have one here and I have one up by my bed that they just, so there's always one around. And I also keep, I don't like to do this, I don't use them too often, but I keep some just plastic water bottles like that come with the groceries just in those times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't see either one of my water bottles. I'm grabbing that and I gotta go. Right. So like again, that's setting up my environment to trigger, to get the good results that I want. So you have to keep it with you at all times. The three times that, or the two times that you can really down some water is right when you wake up. We're dehydrated when we wake up, but it may not feel like it. You may just want your coffee, but truly you're dehydrated. So if you can start by drinking water first, but also after you would work out or, go for a walk or something, that's another time that you can really get a lot of that water in. But you just want to kind of sip on it all day long. And the more you drink it, you may think, well, I'm not thirsty. Well, if you drink that much water for 3 days, you're going to become thirsty. The more water you drink, the thirstier you will be. And so then it will become normal pretty quickly. So, I mean, that's almost the very basic one. If you're not drinking enough water, I mean, if you want to lose some weight, drinking a lot of water is key. Like it'll happen a lot easier if you're drinking a lot of water. But also I'd say walking. That's a pretty easy one. And back to environment triggers behavior, those tennis shoes need to be out and in your vision, not hidden in the closet. Like sitting out and even stick your socks in there. You know, I like to say just lace up your shoes. Once you've done that, you're closer to walking out the front door and just walking down the street. So those probably be the two easiest, quickest, basic ones that are going to start really making a difference.
And I love that you emphasize those two because they are so easy,
Yeah,
but yet really
significant.
foundation building.
Hmm.
So yeah, love it. All right. So let's talk about brain work.
Yes, so that's the mental, emotional, spiritual side of things. And the key areas are lowering stress, which a lot of this does. Pretty much everything we're talking about goes to lowering stress, which is a huge problem. So we really have to watch our stress, but we also need to be optimistic. We want to follow our intuition, develop our intuition. So some of these are I'll say them real quick: write, read, clear, meditate, and create. So, write is for that person that's just got so much in their brain and they need to get it down on paper. We talked about that before. That pen to paper, that handwriting thing, there's something about that process that just is so helpful in clearing our mind and like organizing our mind and even regulating our nervous system, just to get what's in our brain out and do it every day. So that might be something you do every day. Also, though, maybe in that same area would be maybe the person that has some trauma they need to deal with, whether or grief, recent grief or not recent, but or whatever trauma that we heal from trauma in levels. Like we heal from it here, but a year later, we may still need to be healing from it, right? It's a process, maybe a whole lifetime process that we just need to just write our feelings. This is how I feel, whatever. Nobody's going to read it. You're just getting it out. So, and is that going to be the thing I need to do for these 60 days? Second one is read. That's nonfiction, something uplifting. It could be, self personal transformation, self development, business development, improving skills, something that's improving or bettering you or helping you with self knowledge. Could be personality test type stuff, just, something in that area. Then clear is two things. One is decluttering. We talked about that. That's what I did this last 60 days. So it's just 15 minutes of decluttering some area every day. Sometimes I set the timer, I did it for 15 minutes and I was done. Other times it went on for an hour or two because I just totally got into it. But for instance, I love it. This drawer right here, my top drawer on my desk, I've tolerated for 2 years. It was a disaster, full. It was awful. And so I finally fixed it and I'm so happy. That just does something to us. And then the other part of that would be detoxing your home. So working to go around your home, get all those chemicals out, replace those products with, good plant-based, because that stuff's going, if it's on your skin, it's going into your bloodstream. Our skin is a sieve and it all goes in. So it's usually the laundry room, under the kitchen sink, in the bathroom, shampoo, toothpaste, makeup, skincare, all the stuff. So if that's an area that you haven't dealt with, that you could spend that 15 minutes, figuring out what you're going to order, going through and seeing what you need to get rid of, and just, get your home in good shape in that area. Meditate would be meditate, pray, or do affirmations, like a 10-minute session every day. And then create would be a 30-minute art making session. So, which lowers cortisol. And not for the purpose of, like, if you're a painter and you sell your paintings, that's not this. That's going to be in world work. But this is more for, again, the de-stressing, just calming. I love to needlepoint. I've been doing that for about 4 years, and it's just like my reward for the end of the day. And I give a ton of examples of things you could do. And maybe you spend that 30 minutes figuring out what you want to do, trying different things if you don't really have something that you've done. Like adult coloring books, people love those, or just you'll find something that you love to do. So that's brain work.
And so I really enjoy that brain work is about training for cognitive stamina, for emotional agility, for joy,
Yeah.
not just less stress.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love that.
absolutely. Yes.
Alison, is there a ritual in regards to brain work? Is there a ritual that really protects somebody's focus and their mood that it like in the whole realm of cognitive stamina, emotional agility? Is there something that really protects the focus and mood, not just lowering stress?
I mean, I would lean toward those two at the end, the meditation, prayer, and affirmations. I mean, that's doing something to your brain. There's just no doubt about it. Your focus on that, whichever of those it is. But I also would think that I know that the art making is going to do that too. For instance, like with needlepoint, it's this real focus on these different threads and these different stitches and this needle and figuring things out and learning things. I mean, that's and I'm on Instagram, and so I like all these needlepoint people, right? My Instagram feed is all about health and needlepoint. So I get all this stuff about how it's good for that. And I'm like, oh, yay, this is awesome. And other kinds of art making like that is so good for the brain.
Mm.
So that's a wonderful thing.
And I'm glad you emphasize that because we have here at the Energy Fix, we have a lot of creatives. We have a lot of neurodivergent brains. We
Oh,
have a
yeah.
lot of people with ADHD and
Hmm.
so forth. And so creativity is such a beautiful way
It
to
really
help
is.
hone the brain in and to
Hmm.
also bring in that focus and mood. So I'm actually over here just loving that you said that because that feels
Yeah.
so aligned.
And so fun. So fun.
Yes.
I mean, and people not you can do it alone at your house, but people get together and do it. There's this, it's like an hour and a half away, but every Thursday night there's this needlepoint group down in this big city that I'm near that I like to go to as often as I can. And there's not just for that. There's all kinds. I follow this one lady who I guess I'm gonna have to look more at her. I literally found her today, who something she does something with museums, but her whole thing is talking about museums and art making and how it's so good for the brain and in terms of aging and stuff, and that now museums are figuring that out, so they're not only having the museum pieces that you go in and look at, they're having areas where people can congregate and literally like do needlework or do sculpting or do whatever with their hands. It's about doing stuff with your hands, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that more and more. And I think that's really interesting that you just said that because I never put two and two together. I just
Yeah.
always thought, oh, well, people like hands-on people. There's a lot of people that are kinesthetic learners. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's really interesting that that is going, no pun intended, that's going hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I love
interesting.
it. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, world work. Let's
Yes.
get on to the third one.
Yes, and this is fun too. So in world work, in body work and brain work, you're going to choose one thing and do it every day for 60 days. In world work, you can do one thing every day for 60 days, or you can rotate among them each week. So number one is called dream. Now on that one, if you're the person that's where I was when I turned 60, I was restless. I knew I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what it was. This might be for you. It's 60 questions, again, 60, that you're going to answer one each day for the 60 days and journaling. And sometimes the questions are a quick answer, sometimes they'll take a little longer, and you'll just have to think maybe a little harder about them. But those I really believe are going to lead you down the path of what you could be doing now with your life. And then the next one's engage, which is you're going to engage with another person in a positive conversation, whether it's in person, on the phone, FaceTime, not texting. But, this really is going to maybe be for that person that's lonely, which that's a lot of people. And especially as they get older, again, it could be the empty nest, divorce, widow, and add on top of that maybe the introvert who's real happy in their introverted home, which I can relate to, I really can. But engaging with other people is huge. In fact, in the longevity circles, I've seen a lot of stuff lately where they're saying that may be the number one thing, that we are in relationship with other people. So you would, let's say you chose that once a week, you're going to do that once a week. Well, that means you're going to have to make an effort to call somebody or say, can we go get coffee? You want to go out to dinner? You want to get together and, whatever, go to a movie, although you'd be good to have the conversation in there too. Call somebody who lives across the country that you haven't seen in a long time. Just make the effort to engage and be in relationship with people. Then number three is gather, and that's on the spiritual side of things. So all of these people in all these studies were part of a spiritual community of some sort, whether it was going to church or whether it was some small group or even a one-on-one for the purpose of talking about, it could be a spiritual counselor or whatever. So that's a big factor. And then help would be volunteering, which lots of people find their purpose in that area. So, and there's a million ways to volunteer. You should Google, ways to volunteer, and you will be shocked at how many things you could look into. Um, and I always like to stress here, I think God put the desires of our heart in us and for the purpose of us doing it and pursuing what those desires are, in the area of like, how can we help other people? How can we make a difference in the world? How, even if it's just one person, a grandchild or whatever, but that we don't get sucked into volunteering for something that it's not really what we want to do. It's not really our thing. But that can happen so easily, and people can kind of be guilted into that kind of stuff. But I promise you, if you don't do that thing, there is going to be the person that that is meant for, and they are going to rise up and be there and do that thing. But if you're in the way, they can't. So, so you got to really do what you feel called to do. And then act, the last one would be if you know what your, new purpose is or new thing, then spend an hour a day on it. Maybe it's like on the side as you're doing some other things. So you can rotate through those.
Mm. I think world work is my favorite
Yeah.
because out of all three of these, because it's the one that's just not talked about or emphasized as much.
Yeah.
It's not the one that people usually gravitate towards when they're trying to change their health, when they're trying to bring in the longevity, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
purpose is huge. I mean,
yeah,
like, what am I doing? What gets me excited? What can I, what we want to wake up and be excited for the day or just be like have something that we're going to get into and that, it's going to just be that thing,
yeah.
that we're meant to do.
What have you seen shift maybe with people that you've worked with or people that you talk to? What have you seen shift in regards to their physical or emotional health when they've started to implement things like belonging, purpose, these concepts from world work?
I mean, I had this one lady that was going through, and we've just finished this last one, or it was our beta test, really. Uh, and so I need to get some more feedback on it. But I know this one woman who started it and was 60, and she was very negative and worried and scared, even just about this point in life. And that was how she was talking in the very beginning. And then I watched her because there's opportunities to make comments on things every day. We've got a post, um, and she, I could just see her transformation. She was doing those dream questions throughout the 60 days. And just, by the time she got to the end, she was excited. She was just thrilled about this point in her life. So that watching her transform over that period of time was really great.
Mm.
Yeah.
What about from a personal level? What longevity strategies from the book changed your day-to-day life that made the most impact for you personally?
I mean well, the 30 grams of protein was fantastic. And, but that breathing, the other thing I did two things in body work was the breathing session. And I had done these breathing sessions, I mean, 5 years ago I was doing them, but not consistently. I'd do them for a while and then I dropped off. And so I really wanted to be consistent because if you can do them in the morning, they really kind of fire your different, systems in your body. They just kind of get things going for the day. It's a great thing once you read about it. But so, and it's just like 7, 8 minutes, doesn't take that long. Well, so I'm going through doing that. Sometimes I was maybe 2/3 of the time I would do it in the morning. Another portion of the time I do it mid-afternoon because I just didn't do it in the morning. And there were a few times that I was like 10 o'clock at night. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't do the breathing. I got to do it right now, which is not a bad time to do it either before you go to bed. But I really wanted to do it in the morning. And so I finally realized I'm going to have to habit stack this, where you put a new habit you want to do with another habit that you have already. And so what I did, so in the morning, one of my favorite things to do is drink my coffee. It's healthy coffee and it's half calf. And so I get about 2 3/4 of a cups, 2 cups. They're about 3/4 full. That's kind of what my little what do you call French press will do. And so I decided that had to come between the 2 cups of coffee. So I could drink the first cup, then I had to do the breathing session, and then I could get the second cup. And when I started doing that, and even now, even in the break, I'm still doing it. So that's the good news. That really changed it for me. So, here I wrote the book, but I messed up on that one, right? We're not all perfect. We're just doing the best we can, little by little. And so that little shift, and that was like 45 days in, that little shift made it completely change for me. So that's an example.
Mm. And so this container you've been talking about, that the 60-day dare
Yes.
program? Yeah, yeah. So this container that you've been talking about, I'm sure that people start out really excited
Oh
and
yeah.
they're all in. And
Mhm.
then after a few weeks, it starts to die
Yep.
down and
Yep.
the momentum starts to slow and people get really overwhelmed
Mhm.
and maybe start to fall off. How do you suggest people push through, stick
Well,
on?
yeah, that's kind of the purpose of the group, the online group. It's on an app for your phone, and then it's also on the computer. And so there's the community that does a post every day that hopefully people interact with. There's a tracking system if you like a digital tracking. There's also the planner. I think the paper planner is, important to have, just a daily like planner. Um, but we also have a weekly accountability Zoom call, and you can be there live or you can watch the replay. But people will, and these are stats from just like New Year's resolutions and things like this. People will typically start falling off about 3 weeks into something. And you just have to encourage each other. And it is hard. And that's why we have the accountability Zoom calls, because I know, but we really emphasize just baby steps, setting yourself up for success. Don't bite off too much. Consider, what does your calendar look like for the next 60 days? Are you home most of that time? Are you traveling some of that time? How much of that time are you traveling? How could you accomplish what you want to do while you're traveling? Because that's the hardest part. But there are ways, and we talk about those ways. And we certainly, in those Zoom calls, somebody might be like, oh, I've got a trip coming up. How am I going to do this? So we talk. So, like on that decluttering, well, when I was traveling, I was doing my phone, digital stuff, email decluttering, app decluttering, just all the different things. So there's ways to do things. So, it's just accountability. There's really no other way to do it. And a person, I think we all get to a threshold for different things in our lives, right? We get to a point where we're just not going to tolerate things anymore. Like, how long have we tolerated, well, not keeping promises to ourselves? I think we do get to maybe about 60 and we get sick of it. It's just like, so are you ready for this? Are you ready to make a difference in your life, to really start making those changes that, like I said, your future is hidden in your daily routine. So who do you want to be a year from now or 5 years from now? Well, you will have to do some things, and it just takes some intention, because those things we're talking about don't take that much time each day.
One of the things that I think has been a great gift as I've gotten older, and I believe is going to become more, especially based off of what you've been saying, is that I've noticed, especially it really started when I hit 40, that the filter has started to lessen.
Yeah, it's
And
true, isn't
and
it?
and I don't I care, but
Hmm.
I don't care quite as much as
Yeah.
maybe other people's opinions, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm looking forward to, the 50s and the 60s time and as that progresses, because I agree, even just on a small level myself, I've seen that where you get to a point, you're just done.
Yeah.
You're done tolerating some of
Yes.
these behaviors that don't serve you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You're done tolerating maybe how people treat you. I
Yeah,
mean, even in that area too. I love the line. Some people don't like this line, but we teach people how to treat us. We
it's
do,
true.
by
It is so
accepting,
true.
yeah, by accepting, and being okay with whatever that thing is. And that goes across, how are we treating ourselves? Same thing. How are we, again, not doing what we say we want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. As we kind of pull all of this together, everything you talked about, I would love to hit on three different main groups and just see what your suggestion is on these three main groups. Okay. So number one, let's talk about like the emotional resilience piece of it. Those that are going through trauma,
Mm.
grief, transition, identity shifts. How do we metabolize this? Thinking about the stuff in your book, thinking about these
Mhm.
steps, how do we metabolize these shifts without letting them completely calcify in the body?
Yeah, I think, you have to remember the only way out is through. Can't go around it. You have to embrace it because it is part of your story. We've all had trauma, I think most of us, and it's easy to be like, oh, I'm putting that over there, and I'm just going to live my life right here. But no, it is part of our stories, and so what I mean by the only way out is through is we have to process it. And that writing part is huge, I think. Now, ultimately, it'd be good to go talk to somebody. I have a counselor that, I'll pop in and out over the years, sometimes, oh, it's good to go talk to her. And other times, I haven't seen her for several years. So, I think those two parts of writing and talking are really big. And, just that journaling down that stuff, and grief, I lost my sister a year ago. She's 10 years younger than me. And it's terrible. And so, it just takes time, really. It takes time, but also just processing, talking about it. I mean, we have to talk about it with somebody, whether it's a counselor or a good friend, right?
Yeah,
So we want to be mentally tough, and which goes to what you're saying, resilience. And really, doing this 60-day dare is creating that. It is creating a mentally tough person, someone that's going to say, I am doing these 60 days come hell or high water. I am, it's back to keeping that promise to yourself. And so that kind of the combination of those things, whether it's this 60-day dare or something, right? Something that is going to just create that mental resilience in you. But I think this is a great option. But in combination with those other things, the
yeah.
writing, the talking.
I love that. That's so helpful. Let's talk about category number two then.
Mhm.
Women specifically who are carrying these invisible loads, or I would even say women and single dads that
Mhm.
don't have that extra support, right? Caregivers, that have the careers, the relationships. How do we create health practices that are sustainable in a very real life way, not just in this fantasy schedule that seems really great on paper? How do those individuals who are carrying so much really do it?
It's hard. It's really hard. I mean, one thing I think is really can be really revealing is to do a time log. So like a food log, if you were trying to figure out what am I eating, and it's easy to go through your days and snack on a few things, but you don't remember that you snacked on a few things. Well, the same goes for a time log. Like do a time log, for a week. And I mean, you carry around a piece of paper and a pad, or maybe you put it in your phone notes app, everything you're doing all day long. And then you review that. And, are there times in there that you're sitting on the couch scrolling for an hour? I mean, there could be, because you just need some relief. I get it, and it's just like all you can do is flop down on the couch. But after you've assessed what are you doing every day, all day, are there some things that you can change? Do you look at that and go, "Oh, I don't really need to do this thing, and I don't really need to do that thing, and I could move this thing over there." I mean, that's the only thing we can do. And so just maybe you need to just reorient your day, you know, as much as you can. I mean, I do understand, the person that is carrying that heavy burden and that is just like from sun up to sundown doing something. But I love there's this one lady I follow that she has people. She's like, okay, every time you go to the bathroom, you're gonna do 20 squats. And I love that. I know what a great little thing to habit stack right on top of what you're doing. Those squats, those are a big deal. Those will develop those quad muscles. So whether it's something simple like that or, something else. But I really think once you assess that, and it's so hard to generalize on that, I could definitely talk someone through that, but really assess that and just go, because you may be at that threshold where you're just like, my life has to change. Somehow things have got to change. And if you're at that threshold, then you're willing to cut some things out. Here's one thing I love to do, and it's actually one of the questions in the dream questions, but it's to write down kind of the 10 or 15 or even 20 things you do in your life. Well, I go to this every week and I do this every week and just kind of in sort of the main things you do every week. And then you're going to assign them a letter, one of three. An F for fully aligned, an S for semi-aligned, and a U for unaligned. And the question is, when you think about that thing, what does your body feel like? Does it feel constricted and, oh, I don't even like to think about that thing. That thing stresses me out, just something negative? Or does your body feel expansive and like you love that thing? It's the most fun thing you do every day. It brings you joy. You feel like you're in your purpose, right? And then maybe there's some that are just in the middle. You're just not sure how you feel about that thing. And then that's just a kind of simple way to look back at those things that are not aligned, that are unaligned, misaligned, and be like, is there a way I can change these? Is there a way I can maybe get rid of these? So those are a couple of ideas.
Getting real with yourself, real with
Yeah.
your time, real with what's going
Yeah.
on.
Time is
Yeah.
our only resource,
Yeah.
really. I mean, there are other resources, but really time is the big one. I think at this point in my life, another exercise is figuring out your five top core values. Well, every time, every bit of my life, every bit of time that I'm living, I want to be aligned with those five core values in some way, or I don't want to do it. It's that simple. So may have to do some things that I don't want to do, of course, but in general,
Yeah. All right. And so finally, somebody who's very inflamed, who is exhausted, maybe they're going through a lot of hormonal shifts and they haven't figured out how to shift that yet, right? Like
mhm.
they might feel a little lost on this journey. What is a winnable step that they could take that you would want them to take right now, today, not someday?
I think I would start with a breathing session, quite honestly, just to slow down. Our regulatory system is such a big deal, and that whole sort of stress, fight or flight, adrenaline, cortisol, all those things, um, we just need to calm down and breathe. And, just to sit back and take a 5 minute, a 10 minute would be even better moment to deep breathe all the way down into your stomach. And as we do the deep breathing, your stomach should expand as you inhale. Ours in America, we breathe up here in our chest, way too shallow. But if we can deep breathe all the way down, and then just try to, clear our mind. I mean, I think that's going to be the best thing to start with this moment. And it's in those moments that revelations come to us. Not every day, but it's usually in those moments that we have ideas of, okay, I think I'm going to call that person today, or I think I'm going to make that appointment with that natural doctor so they can help me with my hormones, which are important to figure out.
Mm. This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes,
You
I
know,
really enjoyed it.
as we dive in here to finish up talking about where people can find you and to buy your book and what you got going on, I started this new thing where I'm bringing in some rapid fire questions because number
Mm,
one, I think they're fun, but
yeah,
also number two, I just want to get to know you even more outside of the work that you've been doing. Well, maybe it all,
sure.
overlaps, but still. So
Yeah,
let's just do some rapid fire questions. So remember, three questions here. Whatever comes to the top of your head. You don't need long answers. You can just say
sure.
whatever is on your heart.
Okay.
Okay? All
Uh-huh.
right. First question. I want you to finish the sentence. I feel younger the moment I stopped.
Gosh, worrying. That's the
Mm,
first thing that came to mind.
that's
I
a
think,
good
yeah,
one.
yeah. Caring what people think would probably expand on that. And that has come with age.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, number two. What's your tiny, non-negotiable daily habit that moves the needle for you the most?
Slow mornings.
Yes.
I I protect my mornings. I love a slow morning. Everybody's different. We've all got different circadian rhythms and when at our best and all of that. But I love my slow mornings.
Love it. All right. And then finally, what is a song that you play when
Mm.
you want your cells to feel 25 again?
Linda Ronstadt, Heat Wave.
Oh,
Do you know that?
I do know that. Yes.
My
Oh,
husband knows that if he plays that song, I'll start dancing.
has he ever played that song just to get you to start dancing?
Yes, he has. He's a lawyer and he's a guitar player, so he's way into music.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Allison, this has been awesome. Let us know, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? And what do you got going on in your work right now?
Well, they can find me. My name is my website, my whole name, AllisonMcCuneDavis.com. If you go to slash links, there's a free download. There's links to where to buy the book, but of course it's Amazon, all the places to buy books. It's also on Audible, mostly social. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can send me a message. And right now, I'm just focused on this platform, this area where people can do the 60-day dare, and like I said, we just did our beta test, but we're about to start another one, and so that's really fun.
Mm. As always, all those links will be down in the show notes. So make sure you jump on down there and click on those links and get into Allison's world. I almost called you Linda because,
Linda Ronstadt.
yeah.
Isn't that funny? I hadn't thought about that in a while.
Oh, Allison, do you have any last words that you would like to lay on the hearts of the listeners for today?
Oh, I think I would just I just always go back to the future is hidden in your daily routine. I think, if you can remember that, that's just going to be key to
Mm.
who you want to be, who you want to become.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for sharing your heart, your passion, your wisdom to the world and letting us know that it is never too late to start and that you are always stepping forward, no matter what your age is.
Amen.